Honor, Mr. Parenti.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, there are relatively few of us. There are tens of thousands going down there. I'm really not very impressed by that. It took them $12 million, 2 weeks of mass media primetime promotional hype, and shipping in about 20,000 relatives of the troops to get that crowd there. We had 200, 300,000 without a penny, without any media hype, without any money from the government, without any money from the Pentagon. We had people who really cared marching down that street. We made a real news event, not a pseudo-news event, and it was ignored. I was talking on radio some months ago out on the West Coast, and a call-in came, and the guy said, "You know something? Your right to dissent is protected." It's kind of ironic. It's protected. It's been protected by the U.S. Army, and here you are criticizing that Army. And I pointed out, the U.S. Army has never protected the right of dissent. Not in Guatemala, not in Central America, not in the Middle East, none of these places, and not in the U.S. The history of the U.S. is the U.S. Army being used by copper bosses and mining bosses and state militia and police and gun thugs being used to suppress peace demonstrations, to suppress strikers. To the extent that we have any right to dissent, it's because we faced up against those bayonets. I remember during the Vietnam War, that U.S. Army wasn't protecting my right to dissent. I had those bayonets sticking in my face. And that's it. It's despite that government and despite that display of power that we have some little modicum of freedom that we do. It's when we organize and fight back that we can have that freedom. And when I see those planes go by, that stealth bomber, I see the laid-off workers at Howard University Hospital, the service workers and hospital workers that are getting laid off and cut off, that are needed for work for people desperately sick in that hospital. That's going into that bomber. I see those bridges that are collapsing 2 a month in America and people getting killed in cars. That's all going. We want to know where that money's going. It's going right up there. Now we have to not only condemn this, we also have to ask why. Why is the government bombing in Iraq or killing people in the Middle East or in Central America? What is that all about? And I would argue that there's a very real and rational goal behind that. And the goal is to make the world safe for the giant multinational investors, to make sure that the land, the labor, the resources, and the capital in these countries are accessible to the big investors, to the oil companies in the Middle East, to the other cartels in Central America. And the goal is to wipe out any left revolutionary government. The goal is to wipe out even a populist nationalist government like Hussein's, even a repressive right-wing government that decides it wants to use a bigger chunk of those resources for its own development. The goal is to set up little puppet client states that will do exactly what the CIA wants, exactly what the White House wants, and exactly what the multinationals want. Cheap labor markets, cheap natural resources that are sold at the lowest possible price. And this is George Bush's goal. It is to make the world safe for investment, for massive profits, and for his particular class. And our goal is to understand that and to stop it and to fight it in every way. George Bush is a serial killer. He has killed repeatedly in the past, and he will kill again unless we stop him. And by God, I'm going to try, and you're going to try to do everything we can to stop him. Thank you.